In a world that often questions the relevance of ancient scriptures, Walking by Faith calls us to explore how Old Testament stories still resonate powerfully in our modern lives. This invitation is a call to discover the strength and faithfulness of divine promises that have shaped generations. The journeys of Abraham, Moses, and other biblical figures exemplify not only spiritual endurance, but also unbreakable confidence in the midst of immeasurable adversity. As we reflect on these narratives, we find not only inspiration, but also practical guidance for addressing our own challenges. This is an invitation for you to rediscover the faith that has the power to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, and the impossible into the possible. Abraham, upon hearing God's call, did not waver and left his homeland carrying with him only a promise. He chose a nomadic life, a path that in the eyes of others might seem crazy. However, Abraham saw beyond the tangible, sustained by a firm confidence that he was on the right path, even without a defined map or destination. His journey was not merely physical, but a spiritual pilgrimage in search of a more intimate relationship with God. The culmination of the test of his faith came when he was asked to sacrifice his son, Isaac, the son of promise, on Mount Moriah. Abraham's pain and internal conflict as he climbed the mountain could be overwhelming. However, his resilient faith and complete trust in God guided him through this arduous test. In our own lives, we are challenged to sacrifice our Isaacs, i.e., what we value most, as a sign of our total surrender and trust in the Creator. The story of Abraham serves as a powerful metaphor for renunciation and true faith. This narrative inspires us to reflect on the true meaning of faith, which is based not only on the blessings we can see, but on the certainty of the promises that have been made to us. Abraham moved forward, supported only by the certainty in his heart, showing us that the essence of true faith is to believe, even when the path ahead is not visible. Our daily challenges, similar to those of Abraham, have the potential to strengthen our faith and confidence, arming us for the battles ahead and the next stages of our spiritual journey. Moses, reluctant leader, faithful servant. Moses, initially a runaway shepherd, was transformed into a leadership figure imposed by an unexpected divine call. When God's voice echoed from the burning bush, asking him to deliver Israel from Egypt, Moses hesitated, shaken by the magnitude of the task. However, her journey of faith began there, in the wilderness, where she learned to trust in God's promises despite her own uncertainties. Facing Pharaoh, Moses found himself in a direct confrontation with the oppressive power. Through the plagues and the dramatic crossing of the Red Sea, his faith was forged in the fire of miracles and challenges. Each step through the desert served as a reminder of divine providence and protection, consolidating his faith and leadership before the people he guided. Even in the face of the constant murmuring and doubts of his people, Moses maintained his trust in God, leading with an example of perseverance and dedication. The story of Moses teaches us about the importance of moving forward, even when circumstances seem unfavorable, and of keeping faith when the path ahead seems uncertain. Women of faith in the Old Testament, an example of courage and perseverance. Notable women such as Sarah, Rebecca, Deborah, Ruth, Esther, and Hannah profoundly illustrate courage and perseverance in the Old Testament. Sarah, for example, embraced God's promise that even at an advanced age, she would become a mother. This promise, detailed in Genesis chapter 18, 11-14, was a true test of faith, defying the logic and expectations of the time. Deborah, as a leader and prophetess, took on a commanding role in an era where women rarely held such positions. It guided Israel to a significant victory, as chronicled in Judges 4, showing that strength and guidance come from an unwavering faith in God. Ruth, highlighted in her book, exemplified exceptional loyalty and resilient faith by choosing a path of uncertainty alongside her mother-in-law Naomi, choosing to follow the God of Israel against all odds. Esther, whose story is told in the book that bears her name, faced immense risks in interceding for her people before the king. His act of faith and courage not only demonstrated his trust in God, but also saved many lives. Hannah, mentioned in 1 Samuel chapter 1, persisted in prayer and faith until her prayers were answered, exemplifying perseverance in seeking God despite circumstances. Each of these women, through their stories, teaches that faith is not just believing in moments of comfort, but trusting God, even in the face of the greatest challenges. Their faith inspires us to maintain hope and confidence, no matter how difficult the path may be. The Exodus, God's power, manifested in the deliverance of his people. The Exodus is one of the most iconic events in the Old Testament, highlighting God's power in delivering the people of Israel from slavery in Egypt. The plagues that afflicted Egypt, culminating in the passage through the Red Sea, are accounts of unprecedented divine intervention, demonstrating the magnitude of God's power. These events, described in detail in Exodus chapters 7 to 14, show how God used Moses to confront Pharaoh and perform miracles, strengthening the people's faith in their leader and in his divinity. As they crossed the Red Sea, a powerful image of salvation and hope was drawn before the Israelites, symbolizing the journey of liberation from captivity. The divine provision was not limited to the crossing, for in the wilderness, the people were sustained by manna from heaven and water that sprang from the rock, continual evidences of God's care. These accounts not only strengthened the faith of those who experienced it, but they continue to inspire those who seek to see God's power at work today. The story of the Exodus resonates particularly in times of uncertainty, serving as a reminder that no matter how big the obstacles, God's faithfulness remains. As we reflect on these events, we are encouraged to trust that God can, in unexpected and powerful ways, intervene in our lives just as he did with Israel. The faith that moves mountains. Lessons from the Psalms and Prophets. The Psalms and the writings of the prophets in the Old Testament are rich sources of inspiration and instruction about faith and trust in God. They express a range of human emotions, from ecstatic praise to deep lament, always emphasizing God's sovereignty and faithfulness. For example, Psalm 23, one of the most well-known, offers comfort and reassurance, declaring that even in the valley of the shadow of death, we should not fear, for God is with us, guiding and protecting. Prophets such as Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel also lived lives marked by tremendous challenges, but they maintained their integrity and faith. Not only did they foresee future events, but they also called the people back to true worship and trust in God. Isaiah, in particular, spoke of hope and restoration in times of despair, offering visions of future peace and justice that still speak to our hearts today. Through these texts, we learn that genuine faith does not ignore the realities of suffering and pain, but faces them with a confidence that transcends human understanding. Not only have these writings shaped the faith of past generations, but they continue to move mountains in our hearts, teaching us to trust God with a certainty that defies the circumstances around us. Walking purely by faith, the call to follow God in modern times. Walking purely by faith in the modern context means embracing the eternal principles of the Old Testament and applying them to our daily lives. The story of Abraham and his journey of faith shows us that following God often requires leaving the comfort of the known for an uncertain but promising future. Today, that can mean making tough choices that align our deepest values with our actions, even when it goes against the grain of popular culture. For example, The decision to live a life of integrity and honesty in work or social settings where corruption and deceit are prevalent can be a powerful testimony of faith. Similarly, taking time for spiritual practices such as prayer and meditation on Scripture strengthens us and prepares us to face life's challenges with trust in God. Thus, following God today is a revolutionary act of faith that involves not only believing in His promises, but also acting on that belief. This includes adopting a lifestyle that reflects that confidence, whether through personal, professional, or social choices. This journey, though fraught with uncertainty, offers a peace and satisfaction that only true faith can provide. The glory of God in the Old Testament. Revelations of His majesty and power. The manifestations of God's glory in the Old Testament are moments of profound revelation and teaching. For example, God's presence at Mount Sinai, where He delivered the 10 Commandments to Moses, is a striking example of His majesty and power. That mountain, shrouded in clouds and thunder, symbolized not only God's holiness but also His closeness and desire to communicate His will to the people. Another powerful demonstration of God's glory was through the pillar of cloud and fire that guided the Israelites through the wilderness. Not only did these phenomena physically guide the people through the day and night, but they were also constant reminders of God's protective, directing presence. This divine guidance is an example of God's continued care, even in hostile and uncertain environments. Studying these events helps contemporary believers understand that God's glory is not just a distant concept, but a living reality that has manifested historically and continues to reveal itself in our lives today. The Old Testament stories encourage us to seek this same manifestation in our own challenges and journeys of faith. God's faithfulness to His promises. Stories of redemption and hope. The stories of the Old Testament are filled with examples of God's faithfulness to His promises. From the covenant with Abraham to the promises made to Moses and the people of Israel, each narrative reveals a God who not only makes promises, but who fulfills each one with precision and care. For example, the promise made to Abraham that he would be the father of many nations was fulfilled despite his advanced age and improbable circumstances. The fulfillment of God's promises is seen dramatically during the Exodus, where Israel's deliverance from Egypt was a testament to God's power and determination to keep His word. Every plague sent, every step through the Red Sea, and every provision in the wilderness reinforced the message that God is a faithful keeper of His promises. These stories are not just ancient accounts, but they are echoes of hope that resonate in the lives of believers today. They teach us that just as God was faithful in the past, He continues to be faithful in the present and will be faithful in the future. Trusting in this faithfulness can transform the way we live, encouraging us to wait patiently and confidently for God's promises in our own lives. As we reflect on the powerful lessons of the Old Testament, we are invited to not only admire the faith of spiritual giants, but to incorporate these principles into our own lives. How can you begin to apply these ancient truths today? Begin by taking a moment each day to meditate on the stories of Abraham, Moses, and others, allowing their experiences to guide your decisions and strengthen your faith. I challenge you to ask yourself, where am I hesitating to fully trust? Where can I demonstrate greater courage and commitment to my values? True transformation begins with small but decisive steps toward total trust in God. Do not allow fear or complacency to arrest your spiritual progress. And if you want to continue growing and learning about how your faith can profoundly impact your life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Together we can discover the transformative power of faith that moves mountains.